Hey guys, welcome to Balance Tip Tuesdays. I'm your host, Dr. James Spencer, the Balance and Movement Doc, and we will also have Coach Mike Katz from the Imbalance team joining us today. But first, we got the clip of the day for you. If that doesn't make you smile, I don't know what will.
Absolutely. I love it.
Hey, Coach Katz, how we doing today, man?
Hey, I'm doing excellent, my man. How are you?
Yeah, doing well. So, the big topic for today is the heel. And this is an area that many people don't address, but I feel it's one of those things that's pretty vital for kind of the linchpin of things up and down the chain. And the first thing that I would like to start with is, question for you is what's some of the common things that you see as far as um, heel dysfunction or heel pain or things that you see in your practice?
I mean, what I do actually hear, like anecdotally, is a lot of people that do complain about heel pain. I know I was telling you earlier about one client in particular that I train out of their home that was having some recurring heel pain, and he did go and see his doctor and made sure he was kind of cleared for, some lower body exercise after he made sure he went through all the appropriate testing and so on and so forth, and kind of got cleared by medical there. And what we actually ended up doing is we ended up doing some lower body exercise, a lot of unilateral work, as well as some stability work. And anecdotally, he did tell me that, he had some decrease in his pain, which was really encouraging because he had gone back and forth with a couple specialists during that time, and he wasn't able to kind of get to the bottom of it and kind of getting any relief. So that's just one thing, for me that I felt pretty happy with, because one thing that I know that we've talked about is that it's not just a cure all, but we have found that stability and balance work, with a lot of different issues that have come up, that there have been improvements in those issues. Whether or not we fully understand exactly what's going on in every individual case, sometimes can fluctuate. But I have found very, very significant, very significant results, with doing stability work with my clients. And this particular client, we did some balance work, in particular, barefoot balance work. And he had a lot less pain. So that's one thing that I am seeing is some people are having some heel pain that do come to see me. I do encourage, the barefoot practice. And what I found, researching is that I think it's 26 to 38% of people do have, a heel spur at some point in their lifetime, whether or not they are actually even aware of that. So they might go ahead and go see a doctor, just like my client did, and they might find out that that's actually what it is that's going on.
Yeah, and for everybody, I think those are all great points. And for everybody at home, those are heel discomfort typically can become a common thing. And we're not here to diagnose people's problems, but a lot of times there's what's known as a fat pad. And think of this as your heel, this is the fat pad. A lot of times that will diminish or reabsorb, and it'll compress the actual bone itself, and it creates this friction. And it's like a callus on the hand, and the callus itself is the bone spur. So what that does is it's a friction, but it also helps to create stability somewhere. And a lot of times that's what we see with the heel itself, is it just locks itself up. And when I evaluate a lot of my clients here, I notice that's something that we look at is when we try and get the heel to move, it's typically locked in place. And what that will cause is the foot itself, if this is your foot, the heel is back here, the foot itself will not be able to rotate down. And that is vital for shock absorption and propulsion. And from a couple of the research articles that I saw, one in specifically was from Pinto et al. He talks about if the heel is locked up into too much eversion, meaning the heel is out, it's going to force the foot to be locked down and in. And that's kind of the common knock-kneed look that we see with a lot of people, whether we observe them walking or even evaluate them with the squat. So, that's something that in my office with a lot of the athletes that I see, that's something that we address in here. And it will cause a ton of issues up the chain. And taking a step back, typical shock absorption, the heel should move out, which will allow the foot to move in. Up the chain, your shin should rotate into internal rotation. And then the hip, the thigh itself, should also rotate into internal rotation. And typically what we see is that will not be the case when that heel or actually the midfoot is locked up itself. And in particular, an athlete I was evaluating yesterday, professional baseball player, he's really, really good at movement, but we're looking to get that 1% out of him. And what we noticed is the heel was locked up and his foot was extremely rigid. So when we tested his single leg balance, he lacked what we were trying to see as far as adequate performance. And after we treated him, unlocked that heel, and did some barefoot and balance training and got some good stimulation to it, he passed our test. And it was pretty apparent to him, as well as I didn't have to tell him that there was a problem there. He innately knew that. And from a coach's standpoint, I like when people can just observe their own awareness and realize, okay, that's an opportunity to get better. So, Mike, I know you can relate to some of that stuff that I just said, but it's an area that many people don't address. However, there are a lot of injuries in that area of the heel.
Yeah, absolutely. And like what you just kind of talked about as far as like him being aware of the issue, I think a lot of that comes to, a point that you and I were making as far as, the amount of positions of, freedom that your body possesses. So if you are able to unlock some of that and like you said, manually get your hands on somebody and mobilize some of those particular areas and give them some motor control in those particular areas, then they're just going to end up moving better. And they actually might have had that movement skill, but they just didn't have it unlocked, to a point where they could take advantage of it.
Exactly. And there is some research out there to show that dry needling helps improve balance as well. And that was, with this particular athlete, one of the modalities that we used. So, again, for everybody that's watching on Instagram Live, go to my YouTube channel to watch the full clip with Coach Mike Katz and I from the Imbalance team. And if you guys have any questions, please submit there and we'll answer them during this live as well. So, Mike, moving on, what are some things that you like to use at home or in your practice that may ease up tension on the heel or throughout the lower leg or the calf that people can use at home?
Yeah, absolutely. As far as like including the lower leg and the calf, there's a lot of different things that people can do at home. We've talked about it in previous lives, so I won't go through it too much. But one thing that I like to do with people here in the studio and encourage them to do at their home is some stimulation. So just actually getting some like tactile feedback on an object, whether that be like a prickly ball or something along those lines, that can be applied to the heel as well. And then I also like them to actually be aware of where they are in space. So I actually have them set their eyes on their feet and then have them either perform a movement or even just statically notice where they're shifting their weight, where they're putting their pressure, and just, like you just said, that aha moment where you don't really have to say anything, but if you just point it out to them, then they can innately understand of what's going on. So Don talks about this a little bit, and I do something similar where what I'll do is I'll have them shift their weight, from side to side, forward and back, and actually ask them to perform, maybe eversion or something like that, where, hey, do you have that ability? And do you know, like, intuitively what that means? And can you kind of figure out what that sensation feels like? So that's something that you can definitely do at home, whether it be, in a fitness facility, in a chiropractic, facility, in a, what have you, in your own home. And then another thing is, that I like to do is going on that same line of thinking as far as like tactile feedback. I like to do a little bit of rolling. So when you talked about kind of going a little bit further up the chain in the lower body, I'll do some foam rolling for the calf. I'll explore a couple different angles as well, and then kind of open up some of that dorsiflexion and stuff like that. And then I'll kind of have them, I'll have them manipulate, a nearby joint. Like in this instance, that would be the ankle. So I'll have them point the toes. I'll have them pull the toes in towards their nose while they're rolling, and then have them kind of experience those different experiences within that realm.
I like it. And one of the questions that somebody submitted today, one of the listeners submitted, is, could my Achilles tendonitis be caused by my heel positioning? And it's a very good question. And the answer is yes, absolutely. A lot of times what we'll see is that heel will be locked in a particular position. And when that is the case, again, the shock absorption will go now, not throughout the foot, but it'll go up the chain and start to put extra stress on the Achilles. So a lot of times that is tight itself, and it can wreak havoc, again, up the Achilles tendon and throughout the calf. So something we suggest is kind of rolling the foot out and as well as the calf. One of the exercises that we perform here in the office, we'll be playing a clip here in a minute, but one of the exercises that we like to do is, whether it's a book at home or a slant board, and think of that like on a 45-degree angle. If this is the actual slant, we put the heel up on this to pry that thumb, if you will, as the heel, to create more range of motion. So watch at home. Here's a video that we would like to show you that's kind of replicating exactly what I described. Perfect example of a way that, again, we have some tools here in the office that we can use, but a smaller textbook will also be very adequate to perform that at home if you don't have those resources. So that's kind of, I think, a great place to stop for the heel. There's not a lot of meat and potatoes around this joint itself. A very underlooked and underserved joint and bone. But Mike, if you've got anything else to add, go ahead and holler it out. But again, everybody at home, thank you guys for tuning in.
Beautiful.
Yeah, so we'll see you guys next week for Balance Tip Tuesdays. We may possibly be changing the time to 7:15, so more people can kind of tune in instead of during the work hours. So if you guys have any questions, we're going to be talking about the ankle next week. So go ahead and submit those, and thank you guys for tuning in. Coach, have a great day.